Hey everyone, it's Spencer Hawes here from nichepursuits.com, and welcome to another episode of the Niche Pursuits podcast. Today I've got an interview with Joe and Mike from buildassetsonline.com. That is their personal brand, their blog, where they talk about the businesses that they've started that ranges from niche sites, Kindle ebooks, and most importantly, dropshipping and e-commerce. That's really where their biggest business is. And that's where we're going to spend most of our time during this interview talking about. I do think it's important as well just to mention that they take a portfolio approach, which we'll dive into during this interview just a little bit, where they take some of the money that they're making from their dropshipping and e-commerce businesses and they start to invest in other online assets like Kindle ebooks and niche websites that are a little bit more passive in other areas, and so that they're well diversified. And we jump into the specific reasons why they do that. I do have to warn you that through this interview, you may get really excited about starting a drop shipping business. I know that as I was conducting the interview, I was trying to tell myself, I know I'm an entrepreneur, but I've got too much going on already. But boy, if I had a little bit of extra time, these guys really make it sound like the drop shipping business is alive and well. In fact, their businesses, their e-commerce businesses are doing $30,000 a month in net profit. That's after all their paid traffic advertising, any other fees, what they pay the manufacturers for the product, etc. Their bottom line is $30,000 a month. So they definitely know what they're doing. And so during this podcast episode, you're going to hear how you should go about picking a niche, what type of products you should be selling, and Joe and Mike focus exclusively on higher end products that sell for $1,000 up to $10,000 for one individual unit. And they source all of their products directly here in the United States. So this is something that's a little bit different. They aren't outselling products that are on AliExpress that maybe are the cheap dropship products that you may have in your mind if you listen to other people. These are high quality products that they source within the United States. They are dropships so that they are not manufacturing anything. It's a really interesting business model. And they are using paid traffic, Google AdWords primarily, to drive all the traffic to their sites. And so they're able to start relatively quickly once they find a product that they can be selling and drop shipping. They've made a relationship with manufacturers. They can get their Shopify site up. They can start sending paid traffic to that site and hopefully start profiting in as little as 2 weeks. So there's a lot of details and questions that we dive into throughout this interview, but overall, I hope that you find the details shared here very interesting. Joe and Mike also do offer some training on their website where you can join their course and get the step-by-step video instructions on how to build your first e-commerce store. If you go to the link nichepursuits.com/instant e-commerce, that's nichepursuits.com/instant e-commerce. You can see the course that they are offering there. But either way, I hope you enjoy this interview. There's a lot of value here that you can take away whether or not you decide to start a dropshipping business. Thanks a lot. Hey, Joe and Mike, welcome to the Niche Pursuits podcast.
Hey, Spencer.
Hey, Spencer.
Great to have you guys. I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Your website, buildassetsonline.com, is where you're talking about a whole host of things, and we're going to dive into exactly what your business is and what you're doing. It's kind of interesting, both the way that we connected and our first attempt at doing this podcast. We actually connected through John Dykstra, who was on the Niche Pursuits podcast recently. He mentioned you guys saying, hey, if you want to connect with some other interesting entrepreneurs, you should reach out to Joe and Mike. They're doing some really cool things there. So what's the connection that you guys have with John Dykstra?
Yeah, John has been he doesn't do this anymore, but he used to have a coaching program. And, as you'll learn later, what we like to do in our business is we grow e-commerce stores quickly. and e-commerce stores you can sell, and we use the cash flow from that to reinvest into more passive businesses like the niche sites and some other things that you're familiar with. So yeah, I mean, I had just reached out to John for some help on one of our niche sites, and he taught me a lot of stuff, and he's actually the one that recommended that, because we were doing pretty well with the e-commerce stuff, that we make our own, like more personal blog as well as like the course that we made. So, he's kind of the one that started us. I guess the reason why we're on the podcast today, because we wouldn't even have our own personal site or a course at all if he didn't recommend it to us.
Very cool. Yeah, no, John's a good guy, and so good for him for encouraging you to build your website, your personal brand, and do those sorts of things. And I mentioned briefly that we sort of struggled on my end to do this podcast initially. So thanks for coming back a couple days later. I had some microphone issues. Luckily, I've got those resolved, and we're all on the call here today. So let's go ahead and jump into your background here briefly, and then we'll talk about your existing business here in a second. But can you guys give me your brief background, business, work experience previous to building online businesses?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'll pass it to Mike. So I'm a little bit older, and when I got out of college, I went into the usual workforce, and I actually started doing retail arbitrage with Amazon FBA. That was my very first online business, where I'd go to like the clearance sections at Walmart, like scan prices with my phone, and then resell it on Amazon.
Definitely.
And it's a pretty good business model. It's a bit. You don't really learn a lot of online marketing doing it. You learn a little bit about Amazon, and you can scale it into like a pretty good income, which I did. Which allowed me to quit my job, and I was doing that for a little bit. And then, fast forward a little while, Mike wanted to quit his job too once he started working. And, I was afraid of getting my Amazon account suspended, because I know you're not allowed to have two accounts. So I told him, like, hey, you better do something else. And so he can tell you a little about how he got started with Kindle publishing, and then how we both did Kindle publishing, and then how that kind of transitioned us to the e-commerce stores.
Okay. Yeah. So, I was really just looking for a different business model to focus on. Like Joe said, he was working on retail arbitrage, and I had come across, a few people talking about Kindle publishing just on YouTube. And, I reached out to one of them, and they were offering a coaching course. And I went through that in November of 2015. And then maybe 3 or 4 months later, I actually was able to quit my job. And yeah, I mean, that Kindle income had, it was a different time back then. Mm-hmm. And much like how you talk about, Google before a lot of the big algorithm updates, it was kind of like that. And, one day as I was about to quit my job, I had already put in my notice. Our Kindle businesses came crashing down, and we had to figure out, another way to start making money. So yeah, we had stumbled on the dropshipping idea, and, that was really what we had at the time. And we had nothing but time. So we put all our effort into it. And after, about 2 weeks, we went from having nothing to making our first sale. And, to clarify, the dropshipping and e-commerce stuff that we do, we focus on high ticket, expensive items that are, sold in the US. So a lot of times when people think about dropshipping, they're thinking about, items between $10 to $50 that are in China, and you're getting it off AliExpress, and you're doing Facebook ads. We don't do any of that. We find real brands in the USA, and we become, dealers for them. And we use Google ads to simply drive traffic to our website, and we make sales like that. So, okay. That was in March of 2016. And yeah, that year we made, I think, 3 other sites, and we made a total of 6, and they've all been successful. We sold one for $133,000 in January 2018. And we're actually in the process of selling that first store that we made in 2 weeks. So by the time this podcast comes out, that should be finalized.
Okay. Very cool. Well, if it does get finalized by the time we publish this podcast, maybe in the show notes, we can provide some more details. I'll stay in touch with you guys before this goes live. So very cool. So interesting to hear your background. Joe, you got started doing retail arbitrage, and Mike, you got started doing some Kindle publishing, and have shifted now into more drop shipping and e-commerce. But can you give us a sense of your business overall right now, kind of your entire portfolio? How much are you still involved in Kindle and Amazon and e-commerce and niche sites, right? What kind of discuss your entire portfolio, if you will, just everything that you're involved with.
Yeah, so I think each business model has its own set of drawbacks as well as things that it works really well for. And we've really tried to expand and learn a lot of things. We do this full time, and we're very hungry for knowledge, and we want to essentially diversify. So yeah, we have 5 e-commerce websites. We have over 5 niche websites, and we do still have a Kindle publishing business that we revived after kind of everything changed. So yeah, I think it's over 10 separate domains as well as the Kindle publishing site. Joe, if you want to get more into that.
Yeah, so right now the dropshipping stores are the primary earners. That Kindle publishing, not too far behind. On the niche sites, like you mentioned in your Warren Buffett podcast, we're really focused on like reinvesting and scaling those. So we kind of reinvest, everything that they make back into the business, to try and grow them and get some big cash outs. And we're also working on kind of like merging everything in a way. Like we're working on a niche site that ties into one of our e-commerce stores.
Okay.
We have a niche site that ties into our Kindle publishing business as well. So that's kind of the direction we're moving. And that was when we started getting into niche sites. I mean, like 2 years ago, that was our big vision, which we're starting to kind of put together now. Was we need to learn how to do this, because when we do e-commerce, it's all paid traffic, and you could do a lot with paid traffic. The sites Mike mentioned that we sold, those were all paid traffic, no organic, because AdWords is like Google in a way where you can design things that are evergreen campaigns, like
right.
Because it's not like Facebook where like the campaigns die and you got to make new ad copy all the time. So yeah, our future vision is to kind of synchronize everything and create big exits where we have a blog side of the business and then an e-commerce side of the business, and really just try and take over an industry in that way.
Okay. And that was actually kind of my next question, which you sort of answered, but I'll go ahead and ask it here anyways, which is, why do you have such a diverse business, right? You've got Kindle, you've got e-commerce, rather than just focusing on one thing that's really working?
Well, because it kind of, when Mike mentioned, when he gave his notice and he, we got our Kindle account suspended and he quit the same day he gave his notice to quit his job.
Yeah.
That's what kind of started the ball rolling on that. Was like, I guess we got in that mindset of, diversifying. And, when you do that, you really have to be careful to rein in the shiny object syndrome and make sure that you are, at least if you start a project, that you see it through to profitability and don't give up. So I guess that's the reason why. And also, I mean, we knew at the beginning that we knew everything worked together, but you've been doing niche sites for a while. These things take time to learn. AdWords takes time to learn. Optimizing your e-commerce store for conversions takes time to learn. So while in the beginning we kind of knew they were related, it's just everything takes time.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are looking to we're kind of selling off some stores now, and we're kind of unloading a lot of our assets and focusing on more like less things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And it's sort of the fear of getting penalized or shut down, right? That maybe was the impetus for you to diversify a lot. And I can relate with that a lot. Throughout the years, I've had Google penalties. I've had my Google AdSense account shut down, other things that have happened in my business. And so as an entrepreneur, there's kind of that fear. And maybe that's partly why entrepreneurs tend to do multiple things, multiple projects at once. But it's a double-edged sword, like you said. Sometimes if you're able to just focus on one thing, you might be able to scale it much larger than you would have if you had, 4 or 5 things at once. So it's an interesting topic, interesting thing that you guys are working through right now as well. To give people a sense of how well your businesses are doing, can you share us something that will help us understand either the income or traffic numbers? And if you just want to share, your largest business or whatever, just kind of give people a sense of, how well your sites are doing.
Yeah. Our dropshipping sites every month usually bring over $30,000 profit. And recently our Kindle publishing business has been scaling up probably around $5,000 profit within the last month or two. That stuff moves quickly. So that should be increasing even more. And the niche site, I'll let Joe talk about that because I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Yeah, they're bringing in. I think you broke up, Mike, but it sounded like you said 3 for the drop shipping, but it's 30 in profit per month. I'm just not sure. That sounded weird, but yeah, the niche sites, they're bringing around 2,000 or 3,000, between ads and affiliate income and whatnot. But like I said, we're reinvesting that. After a year of trying to learn how Google works, I mean, we're starting to, see the light at the end of the tunnel, and everything's growing really quickly with the niche sites, especially, with the way we're able to reinvest because of the income from the e-commerce stores. Mm-hmm. And I just want to tie that back, Spencer, to something you said. We were talking about it being a double-edged sword, focusing on a lot of things. What we recommend to people who are completely new to online business is that you should be getting started with a business that can bring you cash flow immediately. Because if you don't do that, you need money to reinvest and scale. And if you don't have cash flow, then you can't really do that. Which is why we recommend like a step, like a multi. I don't know how to describe it, but we recommend doing the e-commerce stuff first, which provides the quickest return on your time and on your investment by far. Then we recommend going to Kindle publishing, because it's kind of like Amazon private labeling, like with FBA, except you have unlimited inventory because it's digital products. Yep. And you don't have to spend a massive amount. And then that's when we like going to the niche sites after that, because they provide the slowest return, but the most passive and probably the biggest multiples in terms of selling. Right. So yeah, that's kind of like how we recommend and like to structure things.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So first of all, congrats. $30,000 a month in profit is huge for your e-commerce businesses. And to clarify, that is a profit number. So after all your ad spend, inventory, everything, right? That's your sort of bottom line.
Yeah. And we don't keep any.
Yeah.
And we have a site that we actually split the earnings with someone else. So that's also after our cut.
Okay, good. So very good. You guys are doing quite well. So I want to dive into some of those numbers and how you got there specifically. So let's focus, for the majority of the rest of the call, I think we'll focus on the dropshipping e-commerce business and talked about some tactical things. But first, can you just give us a high level strategy that you follow to build out your sites? What's kind of, just the general model that you follow there?
Yeah. So as I touched on earlier, we like to work with, brands that are in the US already that are, currently selling to people. Like most people, either in their business or in their home, have some of the items that we sell. And so from a higher level, what we do is a lot of people in the high ticket industry like to focus down on one particular, like smaller product subsection, say like kayaks. They would just make a site completely dedicated to selling kayaks. Mm-hmm. And what we found was that this was actually pigeonholing our business because you don't really know exactly what products are going to work. Just much like when you have a niche site and you publish a page, it's hard to tell which one is exactly going to take off. So we like to broaden our sites a little bit and focus on a few different product types. And that way, we contact brands. We say, this is who we are. We're looking to sell your products. And a lot more companies than you may think are doing dropshipping. Dropshipping is just a method of fulfillment. And when you're selling large items, it's pretty much standard. So, we just become a part of their wholesale program. We list their products and we drive Google ads to them. So, we have ways of segmenting and targeting so we can get in front of a customer right when they're searching for that product and, when they're hot, ready to buy.
And are you using Shopify as your platform?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So very interesting. So let's talk about, two things. I mean, one is, why are you going after high ticket items? What's so wrong with going after the $50 or $100 items?
So the high ticket items simply just give you more room to work with in terms of margin. There's actually not much difference when it comes to selling a $50 item versus a $500 item. People will still buy it with the same, they don't need to necessarily contact you to buy it. And it takes the same amount of effort for 10 times the money. So you don't have to be a professional at driving traffic in order to make that work because there's so much wiggle room. Whereas if you're selling a $50 item, you better know what you're doing because, out of that $50, how much is going to be your actual margin? Mm-hmm. If you're lucky, it'll be $25. And then from there, you have to pay for traffic. So if you're good at that, maybe you make $10 at the end of that process.
Yeah.
And so to make a good amount of money, you have to sell thousands and thousands of items. Whereas, we can make, $1,000 off one sale profit.
What we've noticed with most low ticket the low ticket sellers that are like really good at what they do, they're not focused on making money right away. They're focused on building the customer base, getting the email address, and making their money on the back end, which is very, very investment heavy and time heavy. So we just like to get paid up front, get paid as much as we can, and really get the lifetime customer value up from that first sale rather than waiting a year or two for people to order more stuff.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure. So let's talk about how you're sourcing products. I mean, you said you're finding US-based manufacturers, and you hinted that you're just kind of reaching out to these manufacturers. But dive into that a little bit. How do you find the manufacturer? How do you know if they're a good one? What's that process?
Yeah, so in our course, that's actually a common question that people have is, how do I know if the supplier is going to work? How do I know if they're going to be good? And the answer is really that you don't know until you start, until you get their price list, until you start selling their products, and until you see how the market responds. But I mean, Joe, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could spend, all day, looking at the Google AdWords and what's being advertised and whatnot. But we don't really do that. I mean, what we like to do is, say we're going to go after a specific industry like kayaks, Mike mentioned before, not that we do kayaks, but, if I was going to go after kayaks, I would just find every brand that sells kayaks within the price range that we want to sell. Spend half a day calling them all up, correspond via email, and only a handful of those are going to accept you, because they could just be too busy. For whatever reason, we'll go back and get suppliers that didn't accept us at first. We'll go back and get those later, as the site grows, as the business grows, and we get a little bit more clout in that industry. That's happened to us a few times. But basically, it doesn't cost you anything to pick up the phone and call a supplier. It takes all of like 5 minutes. So, I mean, even if there's 20 or 30 suppliers in an industry, you just knock that out in an afternoon. See what you get with the price list, throw them up on the website. And yeah, because we're selling high ticket items, and also because Google gives you a free coupon for AdWords once you spend a certain amount, and you start on a new domain, you should be profitable within your first sale after you get a handful of suppliers.
So maybe let's go back one step. How do you pick your niche then, right? Like how do you decide that you want to go into kayaks? There's a million products you could be selling. How do you narrow down what are some good options?
Yeah. So the thing is that, we've seen so many people who are successful doing this in so many different industries, and we've had success in so many different industries. We have not had one store fail, but to answer the question directly, if you go on Wayfair.com, they're a purely dropshipping site, and at least maybe they do some of their own importing now, but back in the day, Wayfair was all dropshipping. Hayneedle, House, those are good places to start. And what I like to say is, find a product that you can't think of in 15 minutes, in an hour. You kind of want to dive deep, and you can just scroll through any of these websites, and eventually you'll come across a certain product type that you say, oh, okay, this is an expensive item. I'm not too familiar with this, or I didn't really know it existed in this type of form. I'll give an example. So say, like baby products. So if you go on Wayfair and you look at, all the different baby products, you'll see that there's different reclining chairs. There's different types of cribs that are really unique. And, you can essentially just follow that down the rabbit hole and see, what types of things are out there that may not have a lot of competition. And just from brainstorming, you can have a huge list of different products in the baby category that are expensive that you can then contact suppliers to try and sell. So yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of just picking a general industry and finding all the different product types in it and just seeing what works.
Okay.
If you don't mind me interjecting there, Spencer, because
Sure.
I think I have a good way that could help your audience understand this. When you're making a niche site, there's a lot of competitive analysis that goes on, because if you pick the wrong thing and there's too much competition, you're not going to know until if it's a brand new domain, until you get out of the sandbox 6 to 8 months later, and you realize your site is not ranking as well as it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, it's a lot more straightforward. And, a lot of our students actually get hung up on this step. And we always, kind of give them the same answer is you don't have to get hung up on picking a niche or an industry. Like Mike said, back to the baby products for a second. There are so many different subcategories of baby products, and pivoting, like I mentioned, because calling suppliers costs nothing. We like to keep our sites kind of broad, so that pivoting, doesn't cost anything. If you call 30 suppliers and they don't sell, that took you an afternoon. Maybe you spent your first $100 on – this is worst case scenario. Maybe you spent your first $100 on AdWords. You don't make a sale. You spend another afternoon doing the same thing, and then you make your sale and you get all your money back. So, there isn't much downside here, because you can always just – pivoting is far easier than a niche site.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
And, you know, I talk about trying to find something unique, but we've had success, and I've seen others have success selling really the most generic things that you can think of. Whether it comes down to like kitchen items or bathroom items or, you know, different types of outdoor stuff. You'd really be surprised how easy it is to actually make sales on these things. It's just, you know, again, if you're contacting a lot of suppliers and you're bound to get in with one where you can just slip in and just start taking some of that market share. And, you know, when it comes down to Google ads, our strategy there is once we figure out what works, we can start really dominating the market share for that entire brand. And we've done that in some pretty big industries. You know, we're like, I know for one particular brand, we're one of the top 5 dealers for a pretty big product in the US.
Okay, I'm definitely going to want to talk about your paid traffic strategies here in a second, but maybe a more beginner question or curiosity, because I don't actually know the answer. I've never really drop shipped, and I'm sure many of the listeners don't know exactly how this works. So just walk me through the logistics of somebody orders on Shopify. How does that order get sent to the manufacturer? Is it a manual process? Do you have a plugin that automatically, you know, plugs into their system so that they get the order and ship it? Just what's that process like?
So you'll get an email from Shopify that someone placed an order, and we do send the order in manually.
Okay.
It's just a quick email to the supplier saying, "Hey, ship this out to this customer." The customer orders, you get paid for it, and then we pay the supplier, and then the item's sent out. We put in the tracking, and that's really it. And, you know, we outsource our customer service at this point, but, you know, for a couple of years, I did it all myself, and it was, it's not a terrible gig, especially if you're by yourself. It could be a quite high paying customer service job.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a little bit manual, but not too bad. It sounds like, yeah, you're shooting off an email basically, and then that order gets fulfilled. So not too bad. And like you said, you could hire somebody to basically do all of that for you anyways.
Which is what we recommend.
Yeah.
It's always good to see exactly what the process is. But yeah, the way that these businesses run, they do require a little bit more manual work than, say, a niche site. And again, there's pros and cons to everything. Even though it requires more manual work, there's only one way to make over $1,000 in, you know, one particular moment, and that's sort of with some manual communication. You know, so everything has their drawbacks and everything has its pros, and I think this it has a lot more pros than cons, especially when you're getting started out and you want a real business that you can sell and actually start generating money from within 2 weeks or even, you know, a month or two.
So let's dive into your traffic strategies for your sites. So you've mentioned paid traffic quite a bit. It sounds like that's your primary driver. But before we dive into that, are there any other places you're getting traffic? Is there any organic traffic or anything else outside of paid traffic?
Well, when we made our e-commerce stores, you know, the bulk of them, we didn't make them with SEO in mind. So, you know, but they do, you know, over the years they do start getting a little bit of organic traffic, even though they're not optimized. I guess just because, you know, they're aged enough. You know, Google's seeing traffic from emails, from AdWords, so, you know, they're recognized as a site. We never built any links or anything like that. But yeah, it is, you know, 95. You know, mostly paid traffic for sure, and then, you know, retargeting. So,
okay,
you know, we'll retarget on Facebook, you know, throughout the web. Like with, you know, Mike handles the advertising, so I don't know the exact term for it, but, you know, we'll retarget them, you know, the same way you see ads on a website that you go on, and
right,
on social media, like I mentioned. So it's basically AdWords, then retargeting is the bulk of it.
So is all the initial paid traffic from Google AdWords, or are there any other ad platforms that you're using?
Just Google Ads.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
And there's a very
is
specific
interesting.
reason for that.
Yeah, what's the reason?
Because I'm sure you know it well. It's the buyer intent. People searching for a product are ready to buy.
Yeah. So, I mean, that goes down to your strategy, right? As well. I see advertisers all over Facebook, right? I'll let you answer. Clarify, why is Facebook not a good platform for what you're doing?
Because no one is going to go, if someone's going to buy $1,000 item, it's most likely going to be something that, they've been thinking about for a while. They've spent some time researching it. They're still researching it. It's hard to convert, well, they are, I don't know if you would consider them cold traffic because they're already looking for it, but you're not going to convert cold traffic on Facebook, to buy a kayak for no reason.
Right.
It's just not something they're seeking out. And, we want to sell stuff to people that are seeking it out, because otherwise they're not going to spend a couple $1,000s with us.
Yep.
Facebook is more for, generating, it's more direct action marketing. And what we focus on is query based marketing, if that makes sense.
That makes 100% sense. People go to Facebook, they're looking at pictures of their friends. They want to see what their buddy is up to, right? When you go to Facebook, you're not, I want to go buy something. Let's go to Facebook, right? Like you're just not in that mode. Where what you're saying, people go to Google specifically to go, what's the best price on XYZ kayak, or where can I buy XYZ kayak? They're in the mode of, I want to buy this kayak. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to Google. And that's when your ads show up and they go buy it from you.
Yeah. And if I expand upon that, it's really about the lowest hanging fruit. And, people that advertise on Facebook, typically, at least the people that are making it work, they have their own product that they need to generate awareness for. And, in e-commerce and when you buy stuff, there's a certain sales cycle you have to go through of, becoming aware that a product exists, you research it, then you narrow down your choices, and then you buy. So when people are ready to buy, they're going to Google, they're typing in the brand, they're typing in the product, and, whatever comes up, whatever has the best price, or whatever is just in front of them, that's what they're going to click on. And that if the website looks nice, then they're likely to buy. So why not just start right there, right when people are ready to buy, and then you go from there. I'm looking at a GE air conditioning unit in front of me, and so you don't see people trying to sell GE air conditionings on Facebook. But if you search on Google for GE air conditioning unit, I'm sure there'll be a bunch of results. And because they know if someone's searching for that, they're very hot.
Yeah.
Ready to make a purchase.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, they're further along in that funnel. They're ready to make a buying decision. So if you can swoop in right there and get that low hanging fruit, as you called it, that's most likely where you're going to make the sale. So can you talk about some of your Google AdWords strategies in terms of whatever you're willing to reveal here or share? Like, what kind of terms should you be bidding on? How much? Like, what's the secret sauce of paid traffic here?
Yeah. So to clarify, the Google ads that we like to focus on in the beginning are Google product listing ads. So that's when you go and you type in, electric bicycle, and then you see the pictures of the bikes with the prices. Those people are paying to be there, and they're paying per click, just like a regular Facebook ad or a search ad. So that's where you can start out, because generally clicks are a lot cheaper, and you can easily generate conversions from there. But Google product listing ads do not let you pick the keywords you want to show up for. They determine it based on your descriptions. They determine it based on your product titles. But if you know what you're
okay.
So if you know what you're doing, you can actually, inside the Google platform, segment and target certain keyword identifiers. So to make that more clear, I'm trying to think of a brand of electric bike. I don't know. I'll just say Huffy because I know that's a bike brand, right? So there is a way in Google to make sure that you only show up and you only bid a certain amount if people are directly searching for Huffy electric bike, because that keyword is going to be more valuable than someone just searching for electric bike.
Right.
So that's what we do. We segment our product listing ads so that, again, we want the lowest hanging fruit. If someone's searching for a brand name, if someone's searching for an item number, even better, because if they know the item number, they're very aware of the product and they're very interested in it. And so that's most likely going to lead to a purchase. So there are different ways in Google Shopping, Google product listing ads to do that. And, we can spend a lot of time discussing those more advanced strategies, but also we do regular Google search ads. So when you type in something on Google, usually the first 2 or 3 positions are paid. And once we figure out what keywords actually bring us sales, then we go in and we do search advertisements for those keywords. And that's really it. I mean, we've scaled 4 stores to over 6 figures in revenue with just those strategies.
So product listing ads, once you make, when people are clicking on your ads and the data shows up in Google, does it show you what search queries you were showing up for? Is that part of the data that Google shares with you? Okay.
Yes, they show you that. You just can't see exactly what you're going to show up for or target one particular thing specifically.
Right. Okay.
Google what you're eligible for, much like when you create an article, you can target what you want to show up for, but you'll also rank for other things. It works in the same way.
Okay, that makes sense. So maybe you can provide some more detail there, but if you're creating a product listing ad, I assume the way you structure your title or your description or the URL, maybe whatever you're able to manipulate there will help you specify if you're going to show up for that exact brand or that exact product number, right? Are you able to share exactly what it is that you do in those? And then the second part of that is, it sounds like once you see, hey, these product listing ads are doing well, and I can see that I'm making sales for these particular search terms, let's double down on these search terms that are working well and do some actual search ads.
Yeah, exactly. And so we actually don't get too deep into really customizing our descriptions and all that stuff to show up specifically, because at that point, we don't really know what we're going to be showing up for and what's going to work. The huge majority of the time, the supplier will already have a description for you, like based on their own website or whatever they give you in their dealer packets. So we usually just take that. We'll do some minimal changes to it. We'll make it look nice. And as far as the title, obviously you want to have the brand name, you want to have the product type, you want to have the item number, but that's really it. And if you see one thing working and you want to try and make sure that's in the title, then you can go ahead and do that. But it's really not something that we focus on too much. We just put it up and we see what happens and we go from there.
Okay. And then make adjustments as you need. So people click on your Google ads, they go, hopefully they buy, but a lot of people, of course, don't buy the first time. You mentioned that you are doing some retargeting. Maybe you can just talk a little bit about the retargeting that you're doing.
Yeah. So you can retarget someone on Facebook. You'll see that a lot of times. Facebook actually allows you to, if you're looking at a product online, you can go on Facebook and you can see that exact product that you were looking at. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
So there's different apps that can do that for you. You can do it yourself, but that's one way that we retarget. We also retarget through the Google Display Network. So, when you talk with John about display ads, that's our products. That's other advertisers that are on the display network that are getting clicks. And then beyond that, you can actually retarget with product listing ads and with search ads. So this is slightly more advanced, but say someone searches GE air conditioner and they go on the site and then they don't buy, but at that point, they're a part of your pixel. They're a part of your retarget audience, right? So you can set up your Google ads so that if someone who's already been on your site again searches for a product that you sell, then you can customize how you bid there so you can show up even higher, because someone searching GE air conditioner, they're more likely to buy than someone who searches air conditioner.
Mm-hmm.
But if someone's already been on your site before and they're searching for a brand that you have, that's an even hotter opportunity. So does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
That's also a way to retarget. And, we get into all these strategies more in depth in our course, because again, this is like advanced stuff, and it does work, but it does take some, it does take some application, and there's a lot of nuance to it.
Right. There's a learning curve there for sure. So
yeah, but again, the learning curve is there, but in order to have success, you really don't need to have a lot of knowledge. If you know how to make basic Google ads and just do the basic campaign structures that we teach in the course, it really, I maybe had 10% of the knowledge that I do now back when we were having success in the beginning. So
right.
Because you have so much room for error in terms of the margins with the products, it really allows you to see that early success, which is very important. And then you can grow your knowledge from there while you're getting cash flow. It's one thing to, to get a niche site off the ground. It takes 6 months of just waiting and not seeing any return really. So at least, you can develop a foundation, you could start generating money, and whatever you want to do from there, you can do.
So what about any type of on-site strategies? I mean, is there anything special that you're doing there? Or are you just kind of picking call it a good Shopify theme and just kind of working with that? I'm just curious if there's any, sort of specific tips or tricks for how your site is laid out.
There's nothing. We have a few little tweaks that we do. At this point, we can kind of just take a theme, copy the theme, put it on a new store, and change some of the colors, the logos, and everything, and we do that. But the main thing that you want to do is you want to appear like a legit business, because you are a legitimate business, and I think online business is moving more and more in that direction, where if you want to be successful, you actually have to be like a legitimate store. So we like to have everything that a legitimate store would have, and in the right places. So people want to contact us, they can contact us. If they want to know more about their shipment, they can learn more about that. It says the hours, and they can call us and whatnot. So that's really it. You just want to give people a sense of trust, and then deliver on that trust. And of course, stuff like live chat is pretty standard now with e-commerce, and even non-e-commerce sites will have a live chat. So stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm sure there's a lot that we could dive into here, but I'll kind of give you guys a chance to just let us know if there's anything else you'd like to share that's working really well right now for you with your e-commerce, your dropshipping business, either that's working really well or just sort of a common question or tip that you'd like to share with our listeners here.
I think, Spencer, we touched on this a little bit before, but having worked with a bunch of students now, it seems like people always get caught up on the same thing. And this is going to sound cliche, but in this business model, it really applies. Is that you don't want to spend too much time analyzing before you start calling suppliers. You just want to set up your website, pick an industry, set up your website, make it look pretty good, and start calling right away and get the ball rolling, because you're going to learn a lot more in the business than thinking about it. And you know what? Worst case scenario, you set up your store, say you picked the worst industry possible. So what? You buy a new domain name, you point the Shopify store to a different domain name, you change the logo, you tweak the colors a little bit. Within half a day, you have a fresh start. So, with e-commerce, and at least the way that we do it, you're very, very flexible. So don't be afraid to get started and give it a try. I mean, I think even with everything we talked about in this course, I mean, not in the course, in this call, someone could probably go do it, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. So just jump in, right? Stop reading every blog post ever written about drop shipping, or even listening to every podcast. Just go out and start trying it. Take some action and learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. You really have very little to lose with this.
Yeah. So, and then just finally, we have mentioned, or you've mentioned a couple of times that you do have a course you teach. How can people access that course? Where should they go?
If you just go to buildassetsonline.com, in the top bar, or then right on the homepage, you can check out our e-commerce course. It says check out our e-commerce course. And then there's the free course as well in the top, which says free course. And the e-commerce course is everything you need, step by step to, get off the ground and be profitable in as little as 2 weeks if you put the work in. And the free course, we talk a little bit about drop shipping, but it's a lot about it's called the Online Asset Playbook, and it's our overall online portfolio strategy and how it all fits together, with drop shipping kind of as the as the foundation. And you can also, once you go to our site, you'll see a few of our blog posts, and you can also find us on YouTube. I'll have to get the YouTube URL for you.
Okay. Yeah, we can put that in the show notes afterwards.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, our dropshipping course is how to get started fast, but it also is tailored to actually creating a store that can do over 6 figures in revenue. I don't know too many other people who do dropshipping that have actually had 4 or more stores that have hit the 6-figure mark. And so in the course, we actually break down every single strategy that we use to get there and nothing else. So, a lot of times they talk about like these frivolous strategies, like, different ways of doing stuff on Facebook, or different, even YouTube ads or what have you. The strategies that you need to get to 6 figures are really simple. And I've actually glossed over pretty much all of them. So yeah, it's all in there, and we just tried to cut out the fluff because it's a very direct path.
Okay. No, that sounds great. People can go to buildassetsonline.com if they want to just follow along, or if they want to join that free course and learn more about the paid course as well. They can do that. And of course, you mentioned that you may be selling you're in the process of selling one of your sites. So hopefully by the time we get this podcast out and do the show notes, you'll have some more information to share with us on that as well. But overall, Joe and Mike, I appreciate you coming on the Niche Pursuits podcast. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you, Spencer.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.